My jealous mom couldn't accept that. I got pregnant before her favorite daughter, so she brought my ex. What he revealed made her regret everything. I call her Jackie. It's an odd thing, really, because you'd expect me to call her mom, like most kids do with their mothers, but she's always been adamant that Leah, my half-sister, and I never address her that way. I guess in her mind, mom sounds like a title for someone older, and she has just never been able to see herself that way. She's told us more than once that she feels too young to ever be called a mother, as if that title might weigh her down. So it's always just been Jackie, like we're neighbors or friends rather than her children. Jackie was in high school when she got pregnant with me, and the pregnancy wasn't something she or my biological father, Avery, had planned. In fact, she always refers to it as an accident, a word that's weighed heavily on me over the years, whether she realizes it or not. Jackie and my dad were high school sweethearts, but they were young, reckless, and not exactly thinking about consequences when they ended up in this situation. When my dad found out Jackie was pregnant, he made it clear that he wasn't interested in being a partner to her. He agreed to pay child support and to only be there for me, but that was where his involvement ended. He wasn't going to play house with her or continue on with their relationship. This crushed Jackie, though she doesn't always admit it. She had expectations, however naive, of what their relationship might be like, and maybe in some small part, she believed that having a baby would make things more serious between them. But my dad didn't see it that way, and the reality of that shattered her. When I was born, things between Jackie and my dad didn't improve. In fact, if anything, they got worse. Jackie couldn't let go of the resentment she held towards him, and it showed every time he came around. My dad would come to pick me up for visits or just stop by to spend time with me. But instead of keeping things civil, Jackie would almost always pick a fight with him. She seemed to look for reasons to argue, even when there wasn't anything to argue about. She would lash out at him, sometimes over small, petty things, and other times over bigger issues, mostly cantered around her anger that he didn't want to be with her. I was too young to understand what was really happening at the time, so I didn't question her whenever she spoke poorly about my dad. Jackie would say things like, "He doesn't love you enough to marry me," or "Fathers are supposed to take care of their families, and your dad's just a deadbeat." As a child, I didn't have the capacity to process what she was really saying, but as I got older, I started to see things differently. I began to realize that my dad wasn't the villain Jackie made him out to be. In fact, he was the opposite. He was consistent. He visited me every weekend, without fail, always on time, and always eager to spend time with me. He never missed a child support payment, and I could tell that he genuinely loved being around me. I could feel that he cared about me, even if he and Jackie didn't have a good relationship. The more I grew up, the more I understood that my dad was doing everything he could to be a good father, despite the circumstances. He wasn't perfect, but he certainly wasn't the deadbeat Jackie claimed he was. He was there for me, and that's what mattered most. When I was 6 years old, Jackie met Mike, the man she would go on to marry, and who she now calls the love of her life. It was kind of surreal watching her with him, seeing how different she could be. Mike's a nice guy, really laid back, and from the beginning, he accepted me as part of his life, without any hesitation. He's always treated me like his own daughter, which has meant a lot to me, especially considering how complicated my relationship with Jackie has always been. Mike was never the problem. He was steady and kind, and he made an effort to be there for me in ways that Jackie often didn't. Not long after they got married, Jackie became pregnant again, this time with my half-sister Leah. When Leah was born, I was thrilled. I loved her from the start, and over the years, we've grown incredibly close. She's my best friend, and I'd do anything for her. But as much as I adore Leah, there's no denying that Jackie's treatment of the two of us has always been painfully unequal. From the time Leah was born, it was obvious that she was Jackie's favorite. Jackie showered Leah with love and attention in a way that I never experienced. I would watch them together, Jackie lighting up around her, doting on her, buying her pretty little dresses with matching shoes, making sure she had every toy or thing her heart desired. Leah was, and still is, the apple of Jackie's eye. Meanwhile, I felt like an afterthought. Jackie was distant, almost cold towards me. She would hardly ever spend time with me, and when she did, there was this underlying tension, as if my very presence bothered her. Of course it made me jealous. How could it not? I watched my sister get all the love and attention I craved from Jackie, and it hurt. It's not like I didn't try to win Jackie's affection, I did. But my requests for things, whether it was something as simple as a new dress or a toy I liked, were usually ignored or brushed off. Sometimes, instead of getting something new, she'd hand me my cousin's old things and tell me I didn't need anything new anyways, and that I should stop wasting unnecessary money. It's hard to put into words how much that kind of favoritism can sting. It's not just about the material things, it's the emotional distance. The way Jackie seemed to reserve all her warmth and affection for Leah, leaving me to feel like an outsider in my own family. And even though I love Leah with all my heart, I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt to see my own mother treat her so differently, as if Leah were her only child. Every year, when Leah's birthday rolled around, it was a big event, celebrated with a level of extravagance that made it clear just how much Jackie adored her. The parties were always filled with decorations, gifts, and an excited crowd of family and friends. There would be decorations, gifts, and an excited crowd of family and friends. There would be balloons, cake, and a whole lot of fuss made over Leah. And you could tell that Jackie poured her heart into making those days special. It was the kind of birthday every kid dreams of. In contrast, my birthdays always felt like an afterthought. I was never allowed to invite friends over for a party, not once. Some years, the extent of my celebration was Jackie ordering a pizza, and that was it. There was no cake, no decorations, no excitement, just a simple pizza delivery, and the day would pass without much attention. I remember how much it stung to see the stark difference between the way Jackie celebrated Leah's birthdays and the way mine were barely recognized. It felt like another reminder that I wasn't as important to her, that I didn't deserve the same love or effort. When I got older and started pointing out to Jackie how unfair it was, she didn't try to explain herself or make things right. Instead, she'd snap back at me with a cold response like, "Go cry about it to your dad," as if he were somehow to blame for the way she treated me. She'd say things like, "This is all his fault," shifting the blame away from herself and onto him, as if her favoritism had anything to do with my dad's actions. It was her way of deflecting, of refusing to acknowledge the hurt she was causing. My dad, though, always tried to make up for it in whatever way he could. He knew how much birthdays meant to me, how special they should feel, and he never failed to be the first one to call me and wish me a happy birthday right at midnight. He'd buy me gifts and try to make the day feel special, even if it wasn't the same as having a big celebration. He noticed, too, how differently Jackie treated me and Leah, and it upset him. I remember a couple of times when he tried to talk to Jackie about it. He wasn't confrontational, he just wanted to understand why she couldn't treat us both with the same love and care. But those conversations never went well. Instead of listening, Jackie would lash out and it would quickly turn into a screaming match. She'd tell him to keep his opinions to himself and that he had no right to comment on how differently she raised Leah because she was married to Leah's father, not him. She made it clear that, in her eyes, the fact that Mike was Leah's dad gave her permission to treat Leah better. It was as if my dad's involvement in my life automatically disqualified me from receiving the same level of love or attention. That hurt more than anything. It felt like I was being punished for something that wasn't even my fault. When I went away to college, it became even clearer how little my presence really mattered to Jackie. If anything, I think she was relieved to finally have me out of the house. I noticed it in the way she acted, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She rarely called, and visits from her were practically non-existent. The few times I did hear from her, it felt more like an obligation on her part, rather than any genuine desire to know how I was doing. Ironically, Mike, Leah, and my dad made far more effort to stay connected with me than Jackie ever did. They visited me more often, checking in to see how I was settling into college life and making sure I wasn't feeling alone. It was comforting, but it also hurt to see how little my own mother seemed to care. The lack of love and attention from Jackie stung deeply, but I tried not to dwell on it too much. I kept hoping that maybe, in time, whatever issue she had with me and my dad would fade away, and we could eventually have some kind of normal relationship. It was during my final year of college that I met Ian, my ex-boyfriend. He and I became serious pretty quickly, and for a while things between us were great. He was supportive and made me feel seen, which was something I didn't often experience with my own family, especially not from Jackie. When I graduated college, it was a big moment for me. My dad, stepdad, Leah, and even Jackie came to celebrate with me. But to be honest, Mike had to convince Jackie to come. I knew she wouldn't have shown up if it hadn't been for his persistence. Still, it meant something to have them all there on such an important day. Persistence. Still, it meant something to have them all there on such an important day. That day, Jackie met Ian for the first time, and to my surprise, she seemed almost captivated by him. I didn't think too much of it at first, but then she started making these weird comments, like how she couldn't believe someone as handsome as Ian was with someone like me. The first time she said it, I tried to shrug it off. After all, I'd gotten used to Jackie making offhand remarks that were more hurtful than she probably realized, or maybe she did realize. I'm not sure. Either way, I let it go, telling myself it wasn't worth the energy to confront her. But then she did it again. We were all having lunch together after my graduation ceremony, and right there, in front of Ian and the rest of the family, she made another similar comment, implying that I wasn't attractive enough to be with him, and joked if I was perhaps his charity case. This time, it wasn't just hurtful, it was downright humiliating, especially because she said it in front of Ian. I could feel the embarrassment rising in my chest, and I wasn't going to let it slide again. So I turned to her as calmly as I could, and told her that the way she was talking about me and my boyfriend was creepy and that I was more than just my looks. I wanted her to understand how inappropriate and uncomfortable her comments were, not just for me, but for everyone at the table. Ian looked embarrassed by her comments as well. Even my dad, who usually tried to stay out of confrontations with Jackie, was clearly annoyed. He shot her a few warning glances, probably hoping she'd get the message and stop before things escalated. I could tell he didn't want to make a scene in front of Ian, but he was just as upset as I was. It wasn't just a small, thoughtless comment. It was another example of how she always seemed to find ways to put me down, even during one of the most important moments of my life. Apparently, after that graduation day, my mom and Ian became Facebook friends, which took me by surprise. Ian told me that she had sent him a friend request, and he asked if it was okay for him to accept. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I said it was up to him. He accepted her request just to be polite because he knew as well as I did that if he didn't, she would bring up this issue in front of everyone else if she ever saw him next. It did feel odd to me that my mom, who had barely shown any interest in my life while I was away at college, suddenly wanted to stay connected with my boyfriend on social media. Over the 3 years that Ian and I dated, my mom maintained a polite, if distant, relationship with him. She would check in on him every now and then, leaving the occasional comment on his posts or sending him brief messages on Facebook. It wasn't anything overtly suspicious, but there was always an air of familiarity between them. Jackie never gave me that kind of attention, but with Ian, she seemed more engaged. During my relationship with Ian, he did point out to me, once or twice, how he felt my mom was outright jealous of me and my life. He started pointing out all the little ways Jackie acted around me that made it seem like she was in some kind of competition with me, whether it was the way she belittled me, her tendency to dismiss my accomplishments, or even her weird fixation on my relationships. I was taken aback. Jealous of me? The idea had never crossed my mind, and I had always chalked up her behavior to general hostility or unresolved issues with my dad. But Ian was insistent. He could see it from the outside. The way she would subtly undermine me and how she seemed almost bothered by the idea of me being happy with someone or successful in my career. At first, I resisted the idea. It was hard to accept that my own mother could feel something like jealousy towards me. But the more Ian brought it up, the more I started to notice the patterns myself. Whether it was about my looks, my relationships, or even my achievements, Jackie always found a way to make me feel smaller. And when I thought about it from the perspective that maybe, just maybe, she was jealous, it all started to make sense. After that realization, I began to grow more cautious around Jackie. I found myself guarding my emotions more tightly, not letting her comments get under my skin as much. I wasn't sure what to do with the knowledge that my own mother might be jealous of me, but it definitely changed the way I interacted with her. I couldn't look at her behavior the same way anymore. What once felt like indifference or coldness now seemed more like a twisted sense of competition, and that thought, more than anything, made me distance myself emotionally from her even further. Ian and I broke up after 3 years of dating. Our breakup was pretty amicable. We both knew that, while we cared about each other, our lives were moving in different directions, and it was time to part ways. We promised to stay friends, to keep in touch, but as is often the case, life got in the way. I got busy with my own life, and Ian did the same. Before long, we lost touch completely, and that chapter of my life quietly closed. Then, 2 years ago, I met Phil, and everything changed. He was, and still is, everything I could have ever wanted in a partner. Phil is kind and thoughtful, and makes me feel valued in ways I hadn't experienced before. With him, things felt right. We talked openly about our dreams and our future, and for the first time I started to see a real path towards the kind of life I wanted. A life filled with love, stability, and eventually, a family. I'm truly happy with him, something I don't take for granted. This year, we found out I was pregnant. It wasn't something we had planned for right away, but it wasn't an unwelcome surprise either. Phil and I had always dreamed of starting a family, and while the timing may have been unexpected, the excitement was real. We were overjoyed and immediately began planning for this new chapter in our lives. The first thing we did was get married. It was a small, intimate ceremony, just close friends and family. Leah, of course, was my bridesmaid. Having her by my side on that day meant the world to me. Jackie, my mom, attended the wedding, but throughout the ceremony I could sense her disapproval, though I wasn't entirely sure why. She looked frustrated, like something about the whole event bothered her. Later, when we had a moment alone, she finally let her feelings spill out. She told me, rather bluntly, that she never wanted me to marry someone like Phil. In her mind, I was making some kind of mistake by being with him. And then she went on to tell me how she had actually hoped I would get back together with my ex-boyfriend Ian. I couldn't help but laugh when she said it. It was such an absurd suggestion, so out of touch with the reality of my life now. I thought maybe she had had a little too much to drink at the wedding and was just speaking nonsense. The idea that she was still stuck on my ex when I had moved on and found happiness with Phil was almost laughable. I tried to ignore her comments, like I've learned to do over the years. But deep down, it did bother me that even on one of the happiest days of my life, my wedding day, Jackie couldn't just be happy for me. Instead, she had found a way to criticize and make me feel like I wasn't living up to her expectations. But this time, thankfully, I had other things in my life to focus my energy on. I had Phil by my side, a baby on the way, and for once, I chose to focus on the love and joy in my life rather than Jackie's negativity. After Phil and I got married, we decided to wait until the wedding was over to announce the big news I was pregnant. We both felt it was right to share this news only after our wedding so that nobody could question us. My dad, Leah, and Mike were thrilled when we told them. They were genuinely over the moon for me, and their happiness made that moment even more joyful. But, as expected, Jackie, my mom, had to throw in her own brand of negativity, as if she couldn't just let me have that happiness without a sour comment. She started by questioning whether I was sure about having a child, making remarks about how I might regret jumping into motherhood without first enjoying married life with Phil for a few years. Her words took me by surprise. It felt like she was projecting her own regrets or unresolved issues onto me. I couldn't believe that even in this joyous moment, she couldn't support me without making me second-guess myself. But this time, I didn't let her words slide. I was becoming a mother, and the thought of her trying to belittle or overshadow my happiness, and worse, potentially doing the same to my child, made me stand my ground in a way I never had before. I calmly reminded her that I was not her, and that I would never regret having a child with the man I love. I made it clear that no matter what the timing was, I had no doubts about becoming a mother. For so long, I had let her walk all over me, picking apart my decisions, making me feel small, but this time was different. I wasn't going to allow her to manipulate or undermine me anymore, especially when it came to my family. That's when Jackie revealed her true feelings. She said that she couldn't believe that I, the daughter she had always treated as second best, was the first to get pregnant and give the family its first grandbaby, and that she had always expected Leah to win. As if this wasn't enough, Jackie then went on to justify that she just wasn't ready to be a grandmother so soon, and accused me of trying to ruin her reputation and her social circle by having a baby so soon after getting married. Hearing her say that was like a slap in the face. Not only did she outrightly insult me, but now my pregnancy, my joy, was somehow an inconvenience to her image. It was a shocking display of selfishness, even for Jackie. She wasn't worried about me or my future as a mother. She was only worried about how she would look to her friends. At that point, I had had enough. I firmly told her that if she truly felt that way, she wouldn't have any role in my child's life. I told her that if her reputation was more important than being a supportive mother and grandmother, then she was officially banned from my child's life, and I would be going no contact with her. The conversation quickly escalated into a huge argument, with emotions running high on both sides, but I asked her to leave. Ever since then, Jackie has been sending me multiple messages, trying to guilt-trip me into apologizing to her for my outburst. She says she just wanted to be truthful about how she felt, and is accused that my pregnancy hormones have made me overly sensitive. She thinks, as my mother, she has every right to voice doubts about my quick marriage and pregnancy. Atea, if I just cut Jackie off from my life after the way she has treated me? Update 1. It's been a week since my last update. So, in the end, Jackie had no choice but to back down. Leah and Mike apparently called her out for being insensitive towards me and asked her to let this matter go. It seems, for the first time, Jackie has also realized I was being serious about cutting her out of my life and understood that I wouldn't tolerate her toxicity anymore, especially when it came to my child. She has reluctantly apologized to me, promising not to be so negative about my pregnancy or my marriage again. Update 2? Well, buckle up, because I've got an update for you, all that I could have never seen coming. 3 days ago, Leah threw me a beautiful baby shower. Everything was perfect, just as I had imagined. Jackie, of course, was present, though she seemed unusually nervous that day. I noticed that she kept glancing at the door as if she were expecting something, or someone, to arrive. Then, when the doorbell rang, everything changed. Jackie practically jumped off the couch and made an announcement to the room. She had a surprise for everyone. I had no idea what to expect. I thought it might be something small, maybe a gift or a guest I wasn't expecting, but I could never have predicted what would come next. To my complete shock, it was Ian, my ex-boyfriend. He looked beyond uncomfortable, clearly out of place as my mom dragged him into the room, parading him in front of everyone like some bizarre spectacle. I was completely confused. This was my baby shower, my special day, and yet here was my ex standing in front of me. I couldn't understand what was happening. My mom then told me how she had talked with Ian for weeks and had convinced him to finally show up and give me a second chance. She then looked at me and told me that she knew how I was settling for less by being with Phil, but that I did not have to worry anymore, as Ian was here for me. Suffice it to say, my guests were all horrified, exchanging shocked glances after hearing what my mom had to say. I kept looking from my mom to Ian, trying to comprehend what was unfolding. That's when Ian, looking both embarrassed and apologetic, started speaking. First, he apologized for interrupting the baby shower and told me how he never wanted to be here, which only added to the confusion swirling in my mind. Then he continued to tell me how my mom had hounded him on Facebook, sending him relentless messages, wanting him to profess his undying love for me. She was convinced that he and I were meant to be together and that I was making a terrible mistake by having a baby with Phil. My mom, in her deluded state, had told him that I was wasting my life by becoming a mother so soon and that she wanted him to take me away. The whole thing was so absurd, I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Ian explained that he had no intention of rekindling anything between us, but he felt like he needed to come and tell me face to face just how vile my mother had been acting behind my back. He was there to expose my mother's manipulative behavior. As he spoke, I could feel the tension in the room rise. Everyone was staring at my mom, whose face had gone bright red with embarrassment. She had clearly never expected him to speak of her that way. Ian then turned to Jackie and, with a firm voice, he told her she needed to stop messaging him. He said she needed to move on with her life and had no right to sabotage my baby shower. All my life, I could see the anger and humiliation on my mom's face. But for once, she didn't have a snappy comeback or a defense. Ian continued to tell her that he had always known her to be jealous of me and that he was very disappointed to see that she had never changed, even after all these years. Jackie stood there, speechless, as the weight of her actions became apparent to everyone in the room. After Ian had finished, he turned to me and apologized again. He said he was sorry for the disruption, but felt it was necessary for him to reveal the truth about my mother's behavior, as he wanted me to see the true face of Jackie. Before leaving, he handed me a small gift he had brought for my baby, which was really sweet of him, despite the awkwardness of the situation. I thanked him for coming and for having the courage to tell me what was going on. Without his honesty, I don't know if I would have ever believed that my mom could do something like this. Plotting behind my back, trying to continue to sabotage the most important moments of my life. After Ian left, the room was filled with an uncomfortable silence, and all eyes were on my mom, who looked like she wished she could disappear. She was on the verge of tears, overwhelmed by humiliation. I could hardly believe what had just unfolded. My own mother had tried to undermine me in the most hurtful way imaginable. That moment solidified everything I had long suspected, that my mother wasn't just difficult or critical, she was actively working against me, driven by her own insecurities and jealousy. Since then, both me and Leah have had no contact with Jackie. The rest of the family, who were also present during my baby shower, have spread the word around. And no one wants anything to do with my mom now. My dad has threatened Jackie to stay as far away from me as possible. I am still unable to comprehend the lengths my mother can go to try to sabotage my life. Update 3. It's been 8 months since my last update, and for everyone asking, our baby was born healthy and is doing well. Phil and I are great. Leah, my dad, and Mike have visited us several times, and we all meet up regularly. None of us are in contact with Jackie. Mike is currently separated from her. It turns out that after he found out and confronted her about everything, she refused to apologize to any of us and tried to justify her behavior. He finally realized that if she could treat me, her own daughter, in such a horrible way, then there was no guarantee that she wouldn't do the same to him or anyone else she claimed to care about. Her selfishness knows no bounds, and he understood that he was better off without her.